He's Dr. John Coleman. He is an author, of course, constitutional lawyer. And he is with us today because he's written some very interesting books on the Tavistock Institute, on human relations. From my research, you talk about trailblazers in mind control, propaganda, brainwashing, with Edward Bernays and others right up at that level. It's the Tavistock Institute. Also, drug war against America, about how the big banks and CIA are shipping in a lot of the narcotics to destabilize the country. Now they just admit that. He wrote this years ago. They come right out on Fox and CNN and say, yeah, we grow the opium, because if we don't, Al-Qaeda will get it and make money. And, of course, he wrote The Committee of 300, getting into kind of the Anglo-American black nobility of Italy as well, that structure of behind-the-scenes imperial corporate government. And a lot of the work I see on Bilderberg that others have written about is mirrored previously by our guest, Dr. John Coleman's research. So he is with us. I know we have loaded phone lines, and I'll try to get to some of your calls towards the end, or we may not, actually, because I don't know if we have time. In fact, unfortunately, if those callers just call back tomorrow, I'll be able to put them to the head of the line. I apologize to everybody else that's holding. I'm looking at the clock, and I just don't think we'll have time. But we'll be taking your calls again, as I said, tomorrow, so I apologize to those. But this information is all so important. But first, just some quick answers from his perspective with Dr. John Coleman. John, specifically, from all I see, there's a quickening happening, an acceleration. The controllers are moving on every front. If you, say, had 5 minutes on national television, reaching millions of people, and you are reaching millions here, to have a quick synopsis of the peril the planet's in, the position the globalists are in, and what we can do to stop what's happening, what would you say?
I think that the best way to look at this is to take it from the point of view of country by country. The United States, we know, is in the hands of socialism, which was always the goal ever since the days of Franklin D. Roosevelt. And they used many contrived situations to get as far as they have. For instance, the sinking of the Lusitania to get America into World War I, and the other contrived situation, the Gulf of Tonkin, to get us into World War II, and the turning over of China to the communists, ousting of Japan from the mainland. All these things, and now the United States, we definitely have a socialist government. I don't think anybody would doubt that. Anybody who's done any study as to what socialism actually means, I think they all agree that we're in the grip of socialism in America. And this, of course, means that it's all working in tandem towards the one world government inside a new world order, which I've written about extensively in all of my books, particularly the Tavistock Institute and the Committee of 300. But not only those books, other books as well.
Well, the globalist, mainly centering in and around Britain, from my research, and I cover this in my film Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, whatistheendgame.com is the website, as an online bibliography for the film, like a book, and also an index for the film, so people can see the proof that's in the film for themselves. It's an open conspiracy, the title of H.G. Wells' book. A world socialist government destroying the family scientifically, having the state basically remove children like you remove the eggs from a hen, to use an Orwell quote. Of course, he was part of British intelligence. All of that going on, and that they would slowly get control of society. And now we've gone through that 100-year period, and now they're going into their end game, giant wars to exterminate us, you name it. And, you read Aldous Huxley, you read Bertrand Russell, you read the Wedgwoods. All these people are public. They all write government textbooks. I've got John P. Holdren's textbook, The White House Science Czar. He says a planetary regime. We're going to put chemicals in the water to sterilize you. I mean, this is really an open conspiracy, but they know the general public is not reading what these elites have said and done. So I think, speak to that, and then the Tavistock Institute, your research into it being a key node in the actual command and control system.
But of course, and one of the people I mentioned in my book, Tavistock Institute, is Edward Bernays. He was a nephew of Freud, the gentleman who led the so-called scientific scrambling of the brains. And then you have the country turned over to social engineering and social scientists, all in the one big, that they like cogs in this giant big machine, propelling us against our will, if we but stop to realize it, towards the New World Order as fast as they can go. And you take all the wars that have ever been fought, what has been the origin? Economic. All wars are economic in origin, and of course the idea was to destroy the wealth of the nations and put it all in the hands of the Committee of 300. And we see that happening in the United States as well today. There's no question about that that's far advanced.
Well, continue. Flesh out the research you did into the Tavistock Institute. Tell people about it, what the organization does. I mean, I've actually visited the Tavistock Institute. I didn't go in it, but I noticed that the London bus bombing on 7/7 blew up right in front of the Tavistock Institute. So I went there days after the bombing and talked to eyewitnesses for my film Terror Storm.
Well, the Tavistock Institute was unknown to the people of the United States, and I don't like to toot my own horn, but I think its existence was first exposed in my 1969 monograph, the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, Britain's Control of the United States. I think up to that time, Tavistock had very successfully retained its secretive role in shaping the affairs of the United States, its government, and its people, since its very early beginning in London in 1913. And they set up shop at a place called Wellington House. And that originally was set up in order to coerce the British public into the First World War, and then the American public that had no wish to be in this war whatsoever. And the project was given by the British government to the Harmsworth brothers, Lord Rothermere and Lord Northcliffe, and their mandate was to produce an organization capable of manipulating public opinion and directing that manufactured opinion down the desired pathway to support for a declaration of war by Great Britain against Germany. Funding was provided by the British royal family and later by the Rothschilds, to whom Lord Northcliffe was related through marriage. Arnold Toynbee was later selected as Director of Future Studies at the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Two Americans, Walter Lippmann and Edward Bernays, were appointed to handle the manipulation of Britain and the British and the American public opinion in preparation for entry of the United States into World War I, and to brief and direct President Woodrow Wilson, while Toynbee concentrated on changing British public opinion. And you know, everything boils down to what the public perception of something is. And if you have a population that's 80% opposed to your objective, being the government, then the first battle has to be won by changing that public opinion to that which you wanted. And that's why they set up this very scientific organization. And then they had a big upset in 1930 because the two brothers, Northcliffe and Harmsworth, didn't see eye to eye. And Lord Rothermere broke away from Wellington House and in World War II actually became an ardent supporter of Adolf Hitler. And he vehemently opposed the war with Germany. And after one such visit to Hitler, Lord Rothermere returned to London and denounced those clamoring for war with Hitler as supporters of the Bolsheviks, which just goes to show how easily, really, public opinion can be swayed and molded and formed. And the Harmsworth brothers then came into a lot of money, and they began publishing a weekly newspaper called Answers to Correspondence, in which questions were sent in and were answered. By 1994, the brothers were able to produce and purchase the Evening News, which began copying American formats. As a result of that, the Daily Mail was first published in London as an 8-page newspaper, which cost a half a penny in those days. The slogans sold the paper. That's how smart these people had become. They knew that slogans would sell the paper. And they knew that they could do this by catering to a new reading public.
Well, isn't their maxim or credo that perception is reality?
That's what they say. That's exactly what they say. But they have to have these enormous mind-bending, mind-control organizations to change the public perception. It's no good having the reality of people totally opposed to a war unless you can change that. That's your first battle in any war.
And we were lied to 8 years ago about Iraq. They're repeating the exact same propaganda about secret missiles, secret nukes. Al-Qaeda is in Iran, even though Iran's Shiite, even though the U.S. government has 4 Al-Qaeda groups publicly attacking Iran. Iran sits there and takes it. And they use the exact same propaganda again on the sheeple. And then they had that propaganda about $1 trillion in lithium last week, when that's old news, as if the American people are going to get $1 trillion. Even if that was there, we're going to pay to go steal it. We're going to pay for it. We're not going to get it.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. Anyway, these organizations were set up, and they brought up a new language altogether, like regime change and collateral damage. That became almost a new English language, or better yet, the catastrophic English language.